Well, another year has come and gone, guys. Let me tell you, it was yet another great year for romance anime. 2024 gave us a whopping total of 46 romance anime. That adds up to 582 episodes. Yeah, that's a lot of romance, which of course also means a lot of tropes, a lot of dense main characters, and of course, lots of waifus. We had humans, angels, demons, elves, witches, sisters, and guess what? We even had AI waifus. Guys, it's over. AI is even coming for our waifus' jobs. Anyway, guys, enough fooling around. We have a lot to get to. Yes, I watched all the romance anime for the year again. And I'm making a ridiculous long video about this again. Just like last time, guys, I'll be reviewing and ranking every single romance anime from the year, but I get it. It's a long video, so I put timestamps down below if you just want to skip to the anime you are interested in. If anything, I do a top 10 at the end of the video, so you should at least watch that. I think you will enjoy it. But if you can stick around a little longer, I also go over some stats and make some comparisons at the end. I think you'll enjoy that too. Without further ado, let's get this list started. As usual, I'll be going down this list alphabetically, so let's waste no time and get right to it. 7th time loop. The Villainess enjoys a carefree life married to her worst enemy. This anime is about a girl who keeps reliving the last 5 years of her life, and it always ends up with her tragically dying due to this horrible war that starts. And with her now living her 7th time loop, she is really determined to break out from this cycle and escape death. But a series of events happens, and she ends up getting engaged to this evil prince, who happens to be the guy who killed her last time. Spicy. This one was really good. I love this one. It's cool because since she's relived all these years so many times, she's acquired all this knowledge and skills, and she's just a total boss now. Like, she finds herself in a very difficult situation, but also knows that this time around with the situation, she can really change her fate and also the fate of many others. So yeah, we get to see her go to work, be a total boss. Oh yeah, and we get some romance. I mean, how can you not like that? That dynamic between the girl and the prince I thought was really good. My one criticism of the show is that I wish we got to see a little bit more of the other 6 time loops that she lived in. I felt like if we did, it would have been more impactful to the story as we watch things play out. But yeah, I really enjoyed this show. I say 7th time loop is high A tier. 365 days to the wedding. This is a workplace anime where our protagonists work at this travel agency. But there's a problem. The travel agency wants to send one person who is single to their new company branch location, which happens to be in Alaska. Which no offense to those who live there, but I would say it's less than ideal for the average single person. And obviously our 2 protagonists are single, and they're gonna be prime candidates to be shipped out to Alaska, and they're like, hey, no, hell no, okay? Let's fake an engagement for a whole year so that we don't have to go to Alaska. So yeah, I thought the premise was really funny, and I was really enjoying this show at first. But there was this point where our couple reaches this critical moment, and the story was like, hey, you know what? Let's pause, and now we're gonna start focusing on these side characters that don't really matter to the story. And I'm just like, okay, you can have side characters, but don't leave us hanging in a moment like that. Don't leave things that unresolved between our protagonists. I just felt that the middle part of the show was dragging its feet a bit there, and I didn't really like that. But you know what? The ending was fantastic. That was great. Good job. You know, if you're gonna have a high point, having it at the end is a great strategy. At the end of the day, there were still some lows that were tough to get through, I will admit, for that show. So for that, I'm gonna put this in high C tier. Alya sometimes hides her feelings in Russian. This is a high school romance anime where our girl is half Russian, and she sometimes likes to speak to the guy she likes in Russian because, hey, why not? everyone else is Japanese, they won't understand, so I'm gonna take advantage of it and express my love for him. Because no way he'll understand, it'll be my little secret. Yeah, you guessed it, the guy is fluent in Russian. Girl played herself. But the guy is too embarrassed for her to let her know, so yeah. Fun shenanigans ensue. I really like this one, actually. The best part for me were the characters in this show. Alya, I think she is possibly my favorite character design of the year, and she's a tsundere, and I kind of like tsunderes. And then yeah, there's the guy's sister. She kind of steals the show. The brother-sister dynamic is definitely the funniest part of this show, and I will continue to enjoy it. Non-romantically. My one criticism of the show is that it seems to dwell a lot on student council drama. Like, they go over a lot of debates and campaign strategies, and it's not even election season for the school, so I'm just like, is this gonna be the entire show? I hope not, because I just don't find it as interesting. But at the end of the day, I really like the characters in this show. I liked the male protagonist. I even liked Alya's sister. They were all great for me. And so for that, I'm gonna put this in A tier. An Archdemon's Dilemma: How to Love Your Elf Bride. This is your standard slice of life fantasy anime, okay? We have the guy who is super overpowered, and we have the girl who is in love with him, okay? So, you know, pretty standard stuff here. The setup is kind of interesting though, because the girl is actually an elf who's being auctioned off as a slave, and the guy decides to use his entire fortune to buy her, and he buys her with the intention of making sure she lives a normal life. So yeah, we follow their journey of trying to live a normal life together, and you know, it's pretty sweet. It's cute. I mean, she wears a chain around her neck, but you know, whatever, the minor details. Okay, I will say it now. If you don't like shows with very submissive female characters, you may want to pass on this one. But honestly, guys, I really enjoyed this show, actually. I thought it was pretty wholesome. I think the guy's a good guy, so overall, it was good for me. I just know that maybe some of the details may not be as enjoyable for others, and that's why I was bringing it up. It wasn't particularly original, but I had no major complaints, so B tier for me. Astro Note. What was this show again? Oh yeah, this was the wacky one. Yeah, oh yeah, I gotta say, this was definitely interesting. This is about a guy who is an unemployed chef living in a boarding house where there is a caretaker lady who is actually an undercover princess from another world who is looking for a key so that she can become queen, and that key is somehow in that boarding house. Did that make sense? No? Too bad. Yeah, this show was super random, okay? I remember like, okay, there'll be like, this chef is cooking this amazing looking meals, okay? And then, wow, okay, all of a sudden, the girl is pulling a gun out of midair. And what's this now? We're doing an episode about cross-dressing. And then there's this girl who wants to be an idol, and oh yeah, and the dog talks. And after all that, it was still cliche, and the pacing wasn't that good. But I kind of liked it, okay? I totally forgot about it, but I kind of liked it. I can't explain it. I'll say bottom of C tier. Atri, My Dear Moments. Finally, guys, we get a romance anime set in a post-apocalyptic setting. Do you understand how rare it is for one of these to come around? Do you know the meme where the guy is rubbing his hands? Yeah, that was me. Was the anime any good though? Was it actually good? I thought it was good. Most notably, the girl, the main love interest, she's one of those super advanced human robots, okay? But in these futuristic settings, there's always something going on with these girls, right? So I would say it's nothing too surprising here. If I'm being objective though, I wouldn't say the story is anything particularly special. I thought it had some great moments, like this one time they helped rebuild this school for kids. I love that. but overall, yeah, it's fine. I mean, I think the general outline of the story can be pretty predictable. Like, okay, it's pretty happy right now. I think something bad is gonna happen now. Yup, something bad happens. Okay, now I think something sad's gonna happen. Yup, something sad happens, okay? If you're not a sci-fi fan, you don't have to watch this. If you are a massive sci-fi fan and a massive romance fan, I think you will enjoy it. Just don't expect the masterpiece, and you might cry a little bit. I didn't cry though, okay? For the record, I didn't cry. I don't cry. So I put this in B tier. Banished from the hero's party, I decided to live a quiet life in the countryside season 2. Now I know the title basically explains it, but I'm gonna say it again anyway. The guy gets kicked out of the hero's party and he decides to live in this small town to try and live a peaceful life, and in doing so he opens up an apothecary. And from hearing that, you would think, okay, this is gonna be one of those chill slice of life peaceful anime, right? Wrong. Like, there's always something going on, okay? There's someone dying, or someone got killed, or the town is in trouble. Now there is nothing wrong with having conflict, okay? But the problem with this show is that it would keep jumping between tones. Like, it would be peaceful and then chaotic and then peaceful and then chaotic. Like, I just found that very jarring. And the villains in this show, they just have the most punchable faces. They're just so stereotypically unlikable. But now that I said all that, what does salvage the show quite a bit are the main characters. I love the main characters. I love the guy. I love the girl. Their romance is very natural. I really enjoyed that part. And the guy's sister, I really like the guy's sister because she's the anointed hero, which is interesting because usually it's the protagonist, the main guy, who's the hero, but here it's the sister, the little sister. I like that. The peaceful moments were definitely the best part of the show. I just wish it stuck to the peaceful moments more often instead of the drama. But nonetheless, it was fine. I would say it's C tier. Blue Box. Now this is a sports romance anime, and again, this is one of those that aren't that common, so I'm happy to see it. Now we only got 13 episodes in 2024, so that's what I'm gonna be reviewing here, but let's start with the positives. First off, I really liked the characters, okay? I liked the characters and the individual sports that they played. I liked that dynamic. I felt each sport added to their personalities and gave it depth. I thought that was great. And the second thing I loved, the animation, right? I mean, those close-up shots particularly, right? I mean, holy crap. If only every romance anime looked this good, right? Why can't we just do that? The world would be a better place. Okay, but yeah, I do have a couple of concerns. Not that many though. First off, I just wish I got to see more of the sports matches. Like, a lot of times they'll just skip to the end and I'll just be like, wait, I want to see at least a little bit. I suspect we will see more of these sports matches in detail as the stakes get higher, but I wish we got to see some of it earlier on too. Now, the other thing I want to mention is the love triangle. Now I get it. Romance anime have love triangles, but this one just feels particularly choreographed. Like, he's spending time with this girl, now he spends time with this girl, now he's sneaking back time with this girl. I'm just like, really? Like, it was fine at first, but I felt like it got more forced as the show went on. I just feel like Blue Box could do better than that. Like, it has great characters and a great start to the story. I just feel like it should just let the story flow more naturally. But the show is good. I just think it could do better. And it still has the second half of the season to do better. So I only talking about the first 13 episodes. So it could very well be S tier by the end of this. But for now, I say the top of B tier. Bottom tier character, Tomozaki second stage. I really liked the first season of this show, okay? Because it felt like a fresh spin from the usual high school romance anime. The guy is this hardcore gamer, kind of a shut-in, and he befriends the most popular girl in his class because it turns out she's also secretly a gamer. Now, he is better than her at the game that they both play, but she is better than him at pretty much everything else. So the girl takes it upon herself to say, hey, you know what? Why don't you help me get better at this game? And I'll help you get better at this game of life. So I really liked it. I really liked her perspective. I liked the way she was mentoring him. Like, she did it from the perspective of a gamer. Like she would give him little quests. Hey, talk to this guy. Hey, talk to this girl. Do this, take this picture. Do all these little interactions so you can level up in life. I really like the idea. I really like the concept. And for the second season, it was more of the same. I was really enjoying it because the quests would get more challenging and more difficult for him. So I found it interesting. And then we hit the big quest for the second season. And that big quest was for him to get a girlfriend. All right. And there were like 4 girls that he could have chosen. And he literally picked the least interesting one, in my opinion. I mean, some people may be happy with the choice, but I thought she was the least interesting character in the whole anime. You know which girl he should have ended up with. You know, just be honest. You know who you know. I still can't get over. I'm still so disappointed with how it ended up. For how I still feel, I'm putting it this second season in D tier. The Café Terrace and its Goddesses Season 2. I just have one question to all those who are a fan of this series. Why is it so good? I don't really have much to say. I mean, it's just a guy running a cafe with 5 cute anime waifus. I mean, there's the obvious appeal there, but somehow this is just better than your average ecchi rom-com, and I don't get it. All this season did was take 5 waifus and said, hey, you know what? For the second season, let's just make it 10 waifus. And it worked. Yeah, I'm just gonna put this in A tier. Chillin in another world with level 2 super cheat powers. Now this, ladies and gentlemen, is truly a fine piece of isekai trash. A work of art, I must say. Yes, it's the typical setup, okay? The guy gets transported to another world and he becomes super overpowered, and then he gets himself a super hot waifu along with some lady friends. Yet every other anime that I've seen that has this type of premise, I feel like always messes it up in some way. Like it either gets too serious or it tries something completely different to mess it up. But this one doesn't. Thank you. Like, I like how chill this one is. Yes, it has some drama here and there, but it resolves it pretty quickly. And it's just overall, I found it to be a really chill show. So at the end of the day, it was one of those turn off your brain, unoriginal type of animes, but it stuck to its guns and I really appreciate that. So for that, I'm going to put it in high B tier. A Condition Called Love. This is your stereotypical shoujo romance anime. So if you love your shoujo, you know, your female protagonist in a romance, here you go. Just don't expect anything particularly original here, okay? It's not gonna really blow your mind or anything like that. You got the cute, dainty, short girl, and then the tall, skinny, good-looking guy, you know. For me personally, I would say the best part of this show was definitely the romance because the progression of it was really natural. So that's something I did enjoy. Yeah, but I couldn't stand the guy. You know, he's your stereotypical shoujo romance love interest, all right? He's a bit quiet and a bit mysterious, but he's also kind of pushy and a bit of a jerk. Yeah, that's not my thing, but hey, listen, if that's what you like, no judgment from me, okay? Because at the end of the day, a stereotypical tsundere does me in every time. I'm gonna fall for the stereotypical tsundere every single day. So yeah, you know, it's pretty stereotypical, not that original. Didn't care for the guy much, but still pretty good. I would say it's somewhere in C tier. Now I know what you're thinking. What is this show doing on this list, right? This is not a romance, but I gotta tell you, I couldn't help myself. I had to include this one. I mean, how many shonen action anime have you seen where they have romance on the table right from the get-go? Yeah, it's not that common. So for just that, I had to bring it up on this list. Now, I'm not gonna go over the premise because I think this is one of those shows you just want to go in blind because it's a wild ride. Now, if you're not into action anime, that may... just watch it anyway. I mean, the interactions between Okurun and Ayase, just too good. Couldn't get enough of it. If I'm judging it just as a romance, I'm just putting it in A tier. Not yet. Not yet. Maybe season 2. Okay, I want to see a little more. Okay, The Dangers in My Heart Season 2. Okay, let's just get the obvious out of the way. Easy S tier, obviously. Like this show, when I try to look at it on paper, it's so unoriginal, okay? If you take any individual part of the show, I can just find another romance anime and show why it does it better than this show. But for whatever reason, when you put all the parts together of Dangers in My Heart, it's just like the best. What wins me over is not the story, not the animation, not the music, not even the characters, okay? What wins me over is the simple fact that this show captures the magical feeling of falling in love. That thunderbolt to your heart, loss of breath, butterflies in your stomach, right? When you fall in love, there's this anxiousness, this awkwardness that comes with it. I don't think I've ever seen a romance anime that conveys those feelings as well as The Dangers in My Heart, particularly season 2. Now, the one thing I want to say is that I wish it didn't have fan service. I get it, you gotta appease the weeps, so it is what it is. But if it didn't, I would literally recommend it to everyone, like my parents, my grandparents, to literally everyone, but whatever, but it's still an S+ for me. Date Alive 5. This anime is about a guy who has to save the world. And in order to do so, he has to date a bunch of girls with the help of a dating simulator. Listen, with the help of a dating simulator, okay? And he also has to fight battles using magic and mythology, time travel, and mech. If that's not the most anime premise ever, I don't know what is. At its worst, it's trash. At its best, it's above average. Yet Date Alive is anime. It has everything I hate and love about anime. It doesn't hit any part of the spectrum. It is the spectrum. And above all else, it has my #1 waifu, Kurumi. So yeah, S tier. Days with My Stepsister. All right, guys, I can't troll my way out of this one. It is by law that at least once a year, we have to have at least one anime that has something to do with step siblings. It is the law. So yeah, I'm doing my due diligence and reviewing this one. Honestly, guys, it's not bad. Nani? Yes, step sibling romances are wrong, but I feel like this anime is the most honest take of it. Like, it doesn't focus on the physical part of it, okay? There's nothing sexual going on. It focuses more on the emotional side of it. So the guy and the girl, they both lost a parent, and now they're dealing with their own challenges, right? And then one day, boom, they're introduced as new step siblings because their parents decided to get married. So yeah, on paper, they're siblings, but really, they're just strangers. And when you have two strangers who are suddenly spending a lot of time together and they realize they really get along together, well, listen, I would never fall for my stepsister if I had one, okay? But I get it. I can see how it can happen. In conclusion, the show did a good job presenting its case. So, this one's a tough one because I get it, but I was still uncomfortable watching it all unfold. So for those conflicting feelings, I'm just gonna put it in C tier. The Demon Prince of Momochi House. So for this one, I was really rooting for this one. So this one is about a girl who ends up living in a house that has these sorts of spirits living in them, and she gets to learn more about them over time, and then she starts helping them wherever she can. So you anime veterans out there, Fruits Basket, Kami-sama Kiss, you know, those kinds of anime. That's what this anime was kind of going for. And considering I really love both of those series that I just mentioned, I was really wanting to love this one, but this isn't it. This isn't it. The animation wasn't really good. The pacing wasn't really good. Like, I felt like the story was just going through the motions and not quite letting it develop properly. Like, there was some comedy, some mystery suspense, and some romance. Like, I like all the ideas that I was seeing, but it was just poorly executed. This is definitely one of those where I feel like the manga has got to be a lot better, okay? And the anime just botched the adaptation here. So for that, I'm gonna put this at the bottom of D tier. The do-over damsel conquers the dragon emperor. Guys, when we watch anime, we have to suspend belief a little bit, right? We have to remember what we're seeing on screen is not actually happening, that it's fake, it's fiction. When Tanjiro from Demon Slayer uses fire breathing, that's fake. When someone travels back in time, that's fake. When step siblings start dating, my point is that you have to draw the line somewhere. You have to draw that line and you say, if it passes this point, I don't care that it's fiction. That's just wrong and I'm not okay with it. So when you have an anime like this, where the center of the story is basically telling me that a young adult needs to marry an underage girl and the younger the better, that crosses the line for me. It's a 19-year-old guy and a 10-year-old girl, and the guy honestly looks more like 29. And of course, you know, they have plot reasons, right? Okay, it's not like he is just preying on little girls. There's a reason why he has to do it, but it's like, you can't explain that away from me. But listen, I watch anime. There are so many of them with age gaps, okay? There's even more on this list, okay? So I'm well aware of its existence, but when you make it the center of your story, it's hard for me to overlook. Okay, listen, okay, I know there is actually more to the story as you keep watching and the story keeps developing. There is more to it, and there are some interesting fantasy elements in there. Still, that when you have to bring the numerical age into the equation and it's a big component to the story, that's a bridge too far for me. So for that, I'm putting this in F tier. Oh wait, let me tell you the quote of the year. It's from this anime. The quote of the year: "I will bear your children, Majesty, 10 of them." Dr. Elise, the royal lady with the lamp. Okay, so this is a fantasy anime that it's an isekai, and instead of a guy being transported to another world, we have this lady who is actually a renowned surgeon who gets transported to another world. So instead of us getting this overpowered warrior, we have this brilliant surgeon who is fixing a bunch of people. And since this world is further behind on the medical sciences compared to Earth, she's basically the best doctor in the kingdom overnight. So yeah, this one was fun. I enjoyed it. It's cool watching her, you know, being a total boss as a surgeon. And it was fun watching everyone else be like in wonder of her. It's always fun to see something like that. So yeah, I would say that's the strongest part of the show. That was definitely enjoyable, but the pacing overall was a little slow. There is a romantic interest in there, but you know, it's kind of things are going slowly there as well. I would say I was enjoying this though. I thought it was good. It's just that when we get to the last couple of episodes, the show kind of just goes from 0 to 100 real fast, and I was just like, okay, that came out of nowhere. But all's well that ends well. At the end of the day, I would say this show was fine. You know, it was fine. I'll put it in C tier. The Duke of Death and His Maid, Season 3. Yes. This is the one where our guy has this curse where everything he touches instantly dies, which obviously sucks. So he wants to break that curse. You know, it obviously has affected all his relationships. He wants to be able to reconnect with his friends, family, and of course, he wants to be with the one he loves. And this is the third season of this saga, and it's the final one that wraps up this entire story. And there's so much I want to talk about, but I don't want to spoil anything. Okay, this is what I'm going to say. I'm not even just talking about romance anime. I'm just talking about anime in general. If every anime could just wrap up the story as satisfyingly and as conclusively as this one, we would literally have world peace. Like, I finished watching this show and I was like, I don't have any questions. I don't have any lingering questions, which is crazy. I mean, it's not like a complex story like an Attack on Titan or anything like that, but I came out of this show just completely satisfied, and that is so very rare. Like, the first season was fine, the second season was better, and this third season, like those last few episodes, completely took my breath away. Easy S tier. I may have cried a little, just a little. The foolish angel dances with the devil. Okay, this one's about an angel and a demon who are both sent to Earth as sort of these undercover agents with their own secret agenda, and they both end up attending the same high school together. And one day, they discover each other's secret identity and a clash ensues. And you know, one thing led to the other, and to put it simply, they decide to just sort of coexist together. And as you're well aware, angels and demons don't really get along, so shenanigans ensue. Okay, I'll just say right off the bat, the beginning of the show was absolutely horrible, okay? I was like, all right, I've already written this show off. This is gonna be no good. This is not gonna be a good one. And then it was like a mid-season, and then I was like, wait a second, this is actually getting kind of good. And then by the end of the season, I was like, I want a second season. This is my comeback romance anime of the year, okay? Because this, I thought for sure this was gonna be a D tier, F tier, and then somehow it just rose from the ashes. I don't even know what tier it actually belongs in, but at the end of the season, I was feeling like an A. That's how I felt at the end of the season. I love this demon angel duo that we have going on here, and I want to see more. So I'm putting it in A tier. It's probably not actually A, but you know what? It's my list. Deal with it. Grandpa and Grandma turn young again. This, in my opinion, is the most underrated anime of the year. In this anime, we have a grandpa and a grandma who are working the fields, and they noticed on their apple tree there was a golden apple. So they decided to take that and eat it together. And guess what? They turned young again. And they were just like, hey, we're young again, you know, we were poor for most of our lives, and then we just got too old. Now let's take advantage of it and do things together. You guys remember the movie Up, right? And remember the beginning of the story with the grandpa and the grandma? Yeah, this is like the extended edition of that. And with this turning young thing, there's some shenanigans going on with it. And as I was watching it, it just got me thinking about life. Like, what's the happy ending to this story of life, you know? Like, okay, you get married, and then you have kids, and then your kids have kids, so now you're grandparents. Okay, and then what, right? What's the end game here? Yeah, we die, but what's the best way to go out? What is the best way for this to all end? Okay, I'm not saying that the show was super serious or depressing. It wasn't. It was a pretty chill show. I'm just saying that as I was watching this show, it got me thinking. And that ending just... it's the best ending I've seen in an anime all year. It was incredible. S tier for me. I definitely cried. I'm not gonna even sugarcoat this one. I definitely cried watching this one. Hokkaido gals are super adorable. In this high school romance anime, we have a guy who was living in the city and he decides to move to the countryside. And when he moves to the countryside on the first day, he meets this really cute girl who turns out also attends the same school he's going to be attending, and they're in the same class together. So they become friends instantly, and this is their story. Based on that premise, you know this is just gonna be your typical high school rom-com, and that's exactly what this is. It's nothing special, but I enjoyed it. It's a good time because for the most part, it was pretty chill. The guy and the girl, I don't think that they were particularly original in terms of personality, but I found them both likable. Like, I didn't hate either of them, and that's a huge plus. Some other girls come into the picture, but they're more like friends. I didn't really care for them, but they were fine too. There's like a little bit of a fake out at the end, but honestly, it was a good time. And I say that if you're unoriginal, but you're a good time, that puts you in B tier easily for me. How I attended an all-guys mixer. Okay, this one's actually a pretty unique romance anime. This story follows 3 college guys who decide to attend a mixer in hopes to meeting with some girls. But when they get there, it turns out these are not girls, these are guys. Or are they? Turns out no, they're actually girls. They're just dressed up as guys because they work at a drag queen bar that requires them to dress up as guys. And they just got off of work. And it's funny because most of the time when these guys are hanging out with these girls, the girls are dressed up as guys. So at some point, the guys are just thinking, hey, are we gay? I feel like this is one of those romance anime that whether you're into straight love or gay love, it's one that everyone can enjoy. Because the way the show plays with that whole bit with the girls dressing up as guys, I think they go about it in a very fun and casual way, and I think it's great. With that said, I do have one criticism of this show, but it has nothing to do with the cross-dressing. It actually has to do with one of the guys. There's this one guy in the show that freaks out a lot. You know those characters who freak out a lot, overreact to everything, and are incredibly dense? Yeah, we have that guy, and I really try to ignore him, but unfortunately, he's a pretty major character in the show. And so over time, over the course of the season, he just got increasingly more annoying for me. And by the end, I was just like, I wish he just wasn't even in the show. Yeah, I had this show somewhere around A, but that guy single-handedly brought this show down to B. Yeah, F that guy. I'll become a villainess who goes down in history. So in this anime, we have a girl who gets isekai'd into a video game, sort of like a dating simulator, but instead of becoming the heroine of the game, she becomes the villainess. And she's like, fine, you know, I wanted to be the villainess anyway, and I'm just gonna be the best villainess possible. And as you watch this story develop, you realize, you know, she might be doing a little too good of a job. What I love about this anime is that the girl commits to being the villainess. You know, usually in these villainous anime, they're the bad guys, but really they're the good guys. You know what I'm talking about? And yeah, I mean, in this anime, the villainess also has her nice moments. It's just that in general, I found that she usually sticks to the villainous side, and I really like that. And honestly, I have to give the anime some credit because I thought for sure that the overall big villain of this story was going to be this certain character, and I was certain of it, and it wasn't. And I was like, wow, that actually surprised me. But yeah, it was a little tropey, you know, it has some of the stereotypes. Also, the ending was kind of out of nowhere. I get that, but that villainess, she really carried the story for me and I really enjoyed it. So for just that, I put this in A tier. The Irregular at Magic High School Season 3. Now, this anime is set in a magic high school. Like, there is magic in this world. And we have this guy who enrolls into this school, but sort of fails a practical exam and is viewed as a not as good of a magic user. So he gets placed into this lower class and now has to deal with discrimination from the upper class. And that seems like it's gonna be a problem for him. But it turns out that when it comes to fighting, our guy is really good at using magic, like the best even. So yeah, we get to watch him kick some butt and put people in their place, and we watch him rise up in the ranks, and eventually he helps fight off terrorist organizations. Now I know exactly what you're thinking. What does this have to do with romance? Well, I'll tell you. You see, the guy has a sister. Son of a gun, right? I mean, come on. I mean, with this third season, there's not much going on, so you can just mostly ignore it just fine. My biggest issue with this third season is just that it spends a lot of time building up to this latest threat, and then it just felt very underwhelming at the end, and I just found myself disappointed with the season overall. I remember the first season being kind of fun, and this third season just feels like it's fallen off quite a bit. So for that, I'm gonna put this into D tier. Love is Indivisible by twins. F my life, you know? F my life. Welcome to the worst romance anime of 2024. Are there more morally questionable anime on this list? Yes, I would say so. Are there more boring anime on this list? Yes, I would say so. But I have not seen an anime that made me more angry than this anime did. And to me, that's the worst sin you could commit, making me angry. So let's break it down. The premise of this show, it starts off with our girl who has a twin sister. And she's jealous of her because she is getting along with their childhood friend. And in retaliation, she decides to date that childhood friend. And after some time, she just dumps him and says, "Hey, I need you to date my twin sister." Now, if this is like 100 girlfriends, okay, it's like, okay, this is for the laughs or for the memes. But this one is serious. It's like it wants to be taken seriously. It's like, no, this is a serious moment right now. So I'm like, okay, we're in for a dumpster fire. Sometimes dumpster fires can be fun. So let's see how this one goes. But this show has the audacity to just suddenly switch gears from this really serious tone and try to come off as this intelligent rom-com. We go from, I want you to bang my twin sister to, let's make all these pop culture and literature references to be funny. Like, no, I'm just like, you can't do that. The cat's already out the bag. You can't go from a B plot from a porno and then just be like, now I want to be When Harry Met Sally. You can't be domestic girlfriend and then say, yeah, now I'm Kaguya-sama. That's just not how this works. Like, at least the domestic girlfriend stayed in its lane. You know, it was a pile of trash, but it knew it was trash and it stuck to its guns. So at least I could respect it for that. Like, this show had no shame whatsoever. And to really put an exclamation point on that, the season finale basically said, hey, these 12 episodes you just watched were completely pointless. Nothing happens. There is no point in watching them. Why am I giving so much time for this show? Not like, no, this bottom of F tier, okay? It's the worst, and I don't want to talk about it anymore. The magical girl and the evil lieutenant used to be arch enemies. This is an anime about a girl whose job is to protect the world from devastation, and she has this arch nemesis that she has to face. But here's the problem. The magical girl isn't really good at her job, and the arch nemesis kind of fell in love with her. So instead of facing off against each other, they secretly meet up together for some tea time and eat pastries together. So yeah, I actually enjoyed this one. It was a lot of fun, but there are some things I want to bring up about this. First off, the episodes were only 12 minutes long, so it was sort of a short season. And second, there's no real finality to the show. We get one season and it sort of ends abruptly, but that's actually all there is as far as source material is concerned. And the reason for all of that I just mentioned is because the author passed away while writing this, which is unfortunate, right? So that definitely sucks. So this one is kind of hard for me to review knowing that context, because on one hand, I did really enjoy it. I mean, there were a couple of things I didn't like, but overall I did enjoy it. But on the other hand, I wanted more. I wish there was more to it, and there isn't, and it really isn't the author's fault. So for all of that, I'm gonna put it in high B tier. Makeine, too many losing heroines. Now on the surface, this looks like your stereotypical high school romance anime. One guy and multiple girls in the picture, right? So that sounds familiar. But here's the thing. None of those girls are interested in him. They're all interested in some other guy. So what makes our main guy special is that he gets a front row seat to watching all these girls get rejected. So yeah, this is a twist from the stereotypical romance anime. Instead of watching someone win, we're watching a bunch of them lose. I really enjoyed this one. I'm usually a romance guy, but seeing this kind of a twist I thought was interesting. Now there was this one girl who got rejected. And when she got rejected, the guy said, I used to like you, but I don't anymore. Ooh, yeah, that one was rough. I will admit, when I was younger, a girl once told me that. You know that meme of what's the worst thing she can say, and usually they follow it up with something brutal like ew? Let me tell you, if she says something really brutal to you when you confess to her, it may hurt in the moment, but in retrospect, you dodged a bullet because no girl who's worth your time would say something that messed up to you. But when the girl says something like, I used to like you but don't like you anymore, that's just on you, man. Because in this game of love, timing is everything. And if you took too long, well, too bad. Yeah, this anime gave me some PTSD, but it was also great. With all that said, I do have a little bit of an unpopular opinion, I think. I wish there was more development between our two main characters. I don't care. I would love to see it. But with that said, I would say this is high A tier for me. My wife has no emotion. Guys, it's here. An anime with an AI waifu. Now, this isn't the first anime to have an AI waifu. There's even anime on this list that have AI waifus. But this is the anime that gives us an honest look of what the future is going to be like when we have people who are willing to take a robot as a wife, particularly a housewife. Listen, it's gonna happen, guys. Whether you like it or not, the future is inevitable. All these algorithms that are being optimized through social media, yeah, it's gonna go straight into one of those robots, and next thing you know, they're gonna be people who prefer those robots over humans. So yeah, aside from that rant, this show was fine. It was okay. Some tropes there. I feel like some of the people around the guy were far more accepting of that relationship that would be realistic, but whatever. It's just an anime at the end of the day. I can see people being uncomfortable with it. I went in it with an open mind and it was fine. I had a good time, actually. I think it was just interesting to see a different type of anime. So for that, I put this in B tier. Nina the Starry Bride. This is a fantasy romance anime where our girl Nina is a poor orphan and she gets sold off, but is discovered by a prince who takes great interest in her. And he takes great interest in her because she has these beautiful blue eyes. And those beautiful blue eyes are important because there was a princess who just tragically died and they need to quickly replace her. And that princess had those same beautiful blue eyes. So our girl, who was once an orphan, is suddenly a princess. So you're thinking, wow, that's great, but there's a caveat to this. There is a reason why they needed to get a quick replacement princess. An arranged marriage, of course. And this arranged marriage is important because it's in hopes to unite the two nations. So it's one of those political marriages. So this story follows our girl Nina as she tries to navigate from being super poor to being in this really complicated situation. This one I thought was interesting because our girl Nina, like I said, she was poor and now suddenly she's royalty. What I liked about it was that she kind of brought this unique perspective because she comes from a background of being poor, so the way she behaves and thinks is not what you would expect from royalty. So yeah, I really liked her character. Okay, that's a really good part of this show. But also, this is a fantasy romance that is not an isekai and there's no magic in it. There's not a lot of anime that do that, so that's pretty cool. With that all said, the story definitely ends up following some tropes and stereotypes. There is a love triangle here, a very strong and stereotypical one, but you know what? I'm kind of locked into it. I'm kind of invested in it. Team Oz, Team Oz, Team Oz. Boo set, boo set, boo set, boo. So yeah, in some ways it was stereotypical, but in other ways it felt fresh. But it also had sort of like a major cliffhanger of an ending that wasn't so great, but still, I enjoyed it. So for all that, I'm gonna put this somewhere in B tier. Our Last Crusade, or The Rise of a New World Season 2. Okay guys, so for this anime, I just wanted to let you know it came out in 2024, but we only got 4 episodes of it before it went on indefinite hiatus. So yeah, that's awkward. and I didn't want to review it because it's so incomplete. Therefore, I'm leaving it off this list and we're just gonna move on to the next one. Pseudo Harem. This is my favorite romance manga. What makes this series special for me is that we have a guy and a girl. They're your typical high school kids, okay? But their friendship for me just is so pure and genuine. Like every other romance anime out there, there has to be a reason why our couple is together. Maybe they're part of the student council. Maybe they have a common interest. Or maybe there is a certain circumstance that brought them together. Almost always there has to be some kind of gimmick. And yeah, this show also does have a gimmick. I mean, the girl, she is an aspiring actress and she likes to act out different types of personalities for her crush because he really likes it when she does it. But at the end of the day, the reason why we just always see them together on screen is because they like each other. The story doesn't have to give us a reason for them to be around each other. They're just around each other because they like each other. It's that simple. And I love the simplicity of it. And to add to that simplicity is just a short 12-episode anime that tells the whole story, steady romantic progression, no BS, no love triangles, just these two. It's simple. I don't know how you can't like it. I will admit that I was a little worried when I heard the announcement for the adaptation because the manga is a series of short stories and I was wondering how that was going to translate to anime. But they did a good job. I just wish the animation was a little better. It's not quite the level of something like A1 Pictures or KyoAni. I mean, if they did this, oh man, I would be on cloud 9. But still, it was good. For the anime, I still say it's a solid S tier. Ranma 1/2. If you've been watching anime for a long time, obviously this is a classic. Now, for those of you who don't know, this is a remake of an old school classic romance anime. The story goes, there's a guy who has this curse where when he gets soaked in cold water, he gets turned into a girl. But if he soaks in hot water, he turns back into a boy. And if that's not interesting enough, his family's trying to set him up to marry a girl who hates boys. So yeah, funny shenanigans ensue as they have to deal with each other along with other people who are trying to get into the picture. I will admit, guys, this isn't amongst my absolute favorites, but it's hard to deny the classic that it is, right? It's kind of like the OG gender-bending rom-com, and it's hilarious. There's more of a martial arts theme going on, and I'm not as big of a fan of that, but I still really enjoy it. I would say it's definitely up there, somewhere up there in A tier. Spirit Chronicles Season 2. So the first season of this show, it's like your stereotypical isekai anime, okay? The guy, he dies in this tragic, brutal traffic accident, gets transported into another world. He becomes this powerful warrior, and he saves a bunch of girls, and all those girls fall in love with him. You know. But the first season ends on this major cliffhanger where some of the people that this guy knew also got transported into this world. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. So I thought the second season was going to follow up on that and I was going to get to learn more about what's going on with them. And yeah, I'm not sure if it answered any of my questions, but most importantly, I had a hard time paying attention. I'm just going to say, I just found this season incredibly boring. And it definitely didn't help that for half the season, they did this thing where they would dub the voices over each other. Like there would be Japanese and the native language of the world. They would be playing at the same time. And I thought my computer was broken or something. So that was very distracting. All I have is the guy hops around the different cities and every city has at least one girl who's in love with him. And there's this princess who always seems to be in trouble and the guy always has to save her. That's probably a horrible synopsis, but that's all I got. F tier. Most boring romance anime of the year for me. Senpai is an Otoko no Ko. Now this is a high school romance anime where the guy likes to dress up like a girl. He's a cross-dresser. So yeah, if you guys don't like that kind of thing, you should just skip this one. Now for me personally, I don't really mind. If I see it in anime, it's not that big of a deal for me. In fact, there was one that came out a while back, Wandering Sun. Now that one, I thought it was a really good anime. I thought it really did a good job just portraying a boy who wants to dress up like a girl. I thought it provided an interesting perspective in that kind of world. So when I saw this anime, I was going into it hoping that it'll be kind of like that. It will just follow along the same lines as that anime. But yeah, it does some of that. It definitely does some of that. But it had the most forced love triangle I saw from any of these anime. The most forced. Like when it first introduced a love triangle, I was like, okay, I mean, that's pretty standard, nothing too unusual here. And then one of the love interests decides to say, okay, I'm out. And I'm like, okay, that's fair, they're out. And then the show just decides to force the love triangle right back in the most dramatic and absurd way. Like it was just like there was a lot of drama building up to it, and the moment happened, and then they just really had to like really crank that dramaticness up. And I was like, it was the hardest I rolled my eyes, I think, the entire year. That was just, I just found it so ridiculous. So at the end of the day, that love triangle just overshadowed the whole cross-dressing aspect for me. Like it was definitely there. They kind of address it in the beginning, and they do address it at the end as well. But when I think about that show, I just can't get over how stupid this love triangle was set up. I just can't get over it. So for that, I am gonna put it in D tier. A Sign of Affection. Yes. Now this one I really liked. First off, this one is set in college, which obviously is pretty nice because, as you're well aware, 99% of school anime is gonna be set in high school. So just for that, I'm already rooting for this one. Considering Rent a Girlfriend is the most popular college anime right now, we could use all the help we can get. Now in this romance anime, we follow a college girl who is deaf and a college guy who's kind of like a nomad who likes to travel. Right from the get-go, sparks seems to fly a little bit and a romance brews. Now I'm just gonna say this right out the gate. I really like the vibe of the show. I think artistically speaking, out of all the romance anime, I think I like the style of this one the most. There was just a warmth to the colors of this show that I just really liked. Like the way the setting would light up sometimes. I don't know, it just looked really good. Also, I really like the girl in this show. I found her personality to be really cute and charming, so that was great. Now the guy, okay, he seems like a good guy, but I don't know about you, but he comes off just a little bit suspicious for me. Like I feel like if I had a daughter and she brought him home, I'd be like, okay, honey, listen. You may want to reconsider or double check what you're looking at, because he seems like a nice guy, but he seems a little too good at what he's doing. But overall, this one's really good. Yeah, that guy's slightly suspicious, but doesn't take much off from it. I would say it's high A tier. Spice and Wolf. Merchant meets the wise wolf. Holo. Studio apartment, good lighting, angel included. I'm going to be real with you guys. I don't remember anything about this anime. I know I watched this. I definitely know I watched this. Like obviously the main girl's an angel. And I think the other girls were like these other mythical creatures. But you know, just your standard guy in a rom-com. Oh yeah, the angel lives with the guy. I don't know why she had to live with him, but she had to because she's hot. Now listen, if I don't remember it, that doesn't necessarily mean it was bad, because trust me, if something bad happened, I would remember it. But also, if something particularly good happened, I would also remember that. So, what this means is that this show is just kind of right down the middle. It didn't do anything particularly memorable or anything particularly painful. So for that, I say this belongs in C tier. Tales of Wedding Rings. Now this, I remember this, and not in a good way. This is an isekai anime where our guy gets transported into another world, but instead of instantly becoming overpowered, he has to acquire his power by collecting rings. Now there are 5 rings out there, and each ring is connected to a girl. So in order to get the power of the ring, he has to marry each one of those girls. Yes, so this is a harem anime, and an ecchi anime at that. There is gonna be nudity, but don't expect anything romantically because the guy is a total loser. I'm gonna summarize how much of a loser our main guy is with one scene. So one of these girls who had a ring told the guy, hey, I'll marry you, but only if you could beat me in a fight. But before this test can happen, her town comes under attack, and they have to save the town, obviously. And the guy helps her, so that's great. And the town was saved, so the girl was very thankful, and she told the guy, hey, we don't have to do this test anymore. I'll marry you, we're good. And the guy's like, no, I don't want your ring. I don't want you to just give it to me. I still want to fight for it. And you know what he said his reasoning was? He said, I still need to fight you because I need to look cool. Like, excuse me? Like, he has to collect these rings of power so he can become powerful enough to save the world from this big threat. There are people dying, and this guy is worried about looking cool in front of his girl. And beyond just the guy, every romantic scene was a fake out. Everything the guy acquired was also a massive fake out. It was just a one big setup for a second season. And you know what? It got greenlit for a second season. This piece of trash got greenlit for a second season. How? There are so many great shows out there that need a second season, but still haven't gotten one. And somehow this piece of garbage instantly got it. F for F this show. I will leave it at the top of F tier because I do like rings. I think rings in fantasy is kind of a cool concept. And since we're getting a second season anyway, here's to hoping it expands on that. Summa Show. Oh boy, here we go. Here we go. So in this anime, we have a husband who lost his wife in a tragic accident, and he's left with his daughter by himself. And some years go by, and they're getting by, but one day, he stumbles upon an elementary school girl. And it turns out, that little girl is actually his wife. Reincarnated. Yeah, I was terrified going into this. I told myself, if there was even a little bit of funny business, I was gonna call it quits. And when I made this video, I was gonna tell you guys, I watched all the romance anime except for this one. And thankfully, that wasn't the case. Okay, no funny business here, not even a little bit, so that was good. In fact, it was not so much about him reuniting with his wife and more about coming to terms with losing someone. And yeah, I may have gotten a little bit emotional. So yeah, this show was definitely thought-provoking, but it definitely had a flaw that stuck out to me. At the end, it basically wraps up the arcs for each of the major characters in this story, and I felt like it did a good job, except for the husband, which is a slight problem because he's the main character. And I think the reason for that is that the story spent a little bit too much time on the wife's new family, like how she came back, and her family situation was very complicated, and I think the story just went too in depth with that. I just felt like if the story spent more time developing the husband, it would have been a more satisfying conclusion to his arc, at least in my opinion. But at the end of the day, it was still good. I enjoyed it. I would say it would go somewhere in the middle of B tier for me. Tying the knot with an Amagami sister. In this romance anime, we're following a guy who's trying to become a doctor, and he's trying to move to a place where he can focus up on his studies and better his odds of getting into medical school. And there's this priest at this shrine, and he's like, okay, I'll take you in, I can help you out with that, under one condition though. You have to marry one of my 3 granddaughters, because I need you to keep my shrine going, and if you don't, you will lose this benefit I can provide you of getting into medical school. So yeah, our guy's in a bit of a conundrum and funny shenanigans ensue. Now, if that sounded very interesting to you, you should probably watch this. If this sounded very boring and stereotypical, you should probably avoid this one, because yeah, you're right, it hits a lot of the stereotypes and tropes you'd come to expect. What do I think? I was enjoying it just fine at first, and then the anime started throwing in roadblocks into the story to like add drama, I suppose, and I got really frustrated for a moment there, and I was starting to lose hope in this show. But the last 2 to 3 episodes started getting really interesting for me. And I'm talking about the first 13 episodes, by the way. The rest of the season has not come out during 2024, so I'm only reviewing the first 13 episodes. But those last few episodes of the 13, I was like, wait, this show's actually getting kind of good. So for that simple fact that it started piquing my interest there, I'm gonna take this from what I thought was gonna be a C and put it up to a B. Don't make me regret my choice, Mr. Anime. Unnamed Memory. Okay, this is a tough one. This is a fantasy anime where our couple is a prince and a witch. Now that's sort of an unusual couple, right? But there's a good reason for it, because our prince has this curse that's really tough to break, and our witch has agreed to help him break this curse, but it's gonna take some time, so they end up being together for a little bit, and over time, they grow closer together. Now, I just want to say right out the gate, I really like this duo. I really like the prince and the witch. I think they're great characters, actually. But the story of this show is just so bad. Like, it started off fine first because it's focusing on our 2 main characters, and then all of a sudden they just inject a lot of conflict, and it's just like a revolving door of storylines and characters that I didn't really care for because they didn't really properly set it up. I was just like, oh man, that's unfortunate. I'm just holding on to hope because I do like these 2 characters. I just hope that there's a better story that's coming up in the horizon. And then the finale of this season just added a massive question mark to this whole story. And I was like, what are we doing? But there is a second season that's coming out. Actually, I think it's airing right now, beginning of 2025. So, for the first season, it was pretty bad, but I like the characters. But since there is a second season coming up, I'm holding on to hope. But the first season, it's a D for me. Urusei Yatsura second season. Now this is a remake of a romantic comedy that came out in 1981. Now when you watch this anime, you may find yourself rolling your eyes as you see a lot of tropes and stereotypes that you commonly see. But think about this. If you're basically the first one to do it, you're not tropey or stereotypical. You're a pioneer. And that's what this series is, a pioneer, a foundation for what romantic comedies are today. If you want to call to question how much this series matters, consider this. Japan made this remake over 40 years after this show came out, and also they made a statue. Wow! Actually, it's not the series that's a pioneer, it's the author that's the pioneer, and the author is Rumiko Takahashi. She's kind of a big deal. She's like the greatest woman in the history of comics. She also would go on to make Ranma 1/2 and Inuyasha. I think you guys heard of those. But yeah, this is her first work. So when I grade this series, it's not so much the actual contents of the show and more so the legacy it left behind, because its legacy is undeniable. It shaped romances and comedies as we know them today, and that's huge. And for that, I'm putting it in S tier. Vampire Dormitory. This is one of those shows that is so trash. It takes your breath away. Like, it is a non stop cringe fest. It's just trope after trope after trope. It's like a trope train. I don't know, man. And just when I thought I saw it all, like the finale for this show was just holy crap. Like it double took my breath away. I just could not believe the level of plot twistery it was going through. Okay, I'll say this. If you love vampires, and if you love shoujo romances, and all the tropes it comes with, like all of them, and you really want to experience a cringe fest, here you go. But it ain't for me, so F tier for me. Yakuza Fiancé. In this anime, we have a girl who's being set up to be engaged with a guy. Now that may sound familiar, but what's different is that these two are actually grandchildren of the leaders of two different Yakuza groups, and these two gangs are trying to form a truce, and they thought the best way to go about this is to set up this engagement. But yeah, when the girl meets the guy, she realizes that he's an absolute psycho, you know? He goes out of his way to intimidate her, insults her name and everything like that, and she's like, you know what? I'm out. But her grandpa, you know, the leader of the Yakuza group, he changes her mind by telling her, hey, okay, forget about the engagement. Just get the guy to fall in love with you and then just date him for like a year and then break up with him as revenge, you know, just stick it to him. Yeah, I wouldn't say this anime features the most wholesome and healthy romance. Definitely not one of those. The guy is a total piece of crap, but I really like the girl in this show. She's just so over it and done with people's crap. She absolutely carried the show. I don't really care for Yakuza themed anime, and this one definitely was one of those, and I didn't care for the politics, yada yada. But she was the bright spot and definitely made this show fun to watch. So yeah, at the end of the day, I had a good time with this. I would say it goes somewhere in the center of B tier. You Are Miss Servant. Woo, it's the last one, guys. We made it. We're the last romance anime of 2024. Yeah, this is your stereotypical romance anime. The guy gets a maid to live with him. I can't remember the exact circumstances for that, but yeah, it's one of those guy and girl are under the same roof and slowly a romance buds, that type of thing. One detail worth noting is that the maid, she actually used to be this expert assassin, and she's trying to put that past life to bed. You definitely could see the parallels to a character like Yor from Spy X Family. I definitely could see the similarities there. So yeah, at the end of the day, it's your stereotypical rom-com, but there's not much romance that actually happens, but it's a fun way to pass the time, I think. You could just sort of enjoy it without paying too much attention to it. I would say, yeah, you know, somewhere in C tier. Oh yeah, this anime had the most random action sequence where the maid was trying to grab bakery bread at school. It was great. Alright guys, we're finally here. It's the top 10. A special hello to the 90% of you who skipped to this part of the video. No hard feelings, just glad to have you here. I'm gonna start with some honorable mentions first, so let's get right to it. For my first honorable mention, I have Alya sometimes hides her feelings in Russian. Because at the end of the day, guys, I'm a simple man. You tell me there's a tsundere, say no more, fam, I'm in. But yeah, the other girl, she definitely was something. For my second honorable mention, I have Ranma 1/2, a remake of the OG gender bender anime. What can I say? It's a freaking classic, and it looks great. And for my final honorable mention, I have 7th Time Loop, a fantasy romance anime that had one of my favorite female protagonists of the year, and the romance was solid too. Alright guys, let's get into that top 10, shall we? At number 10, I have Dandadan. Yeah, I know, it's not technically a romance, okay? But this is my special exception this year, because it's not every day you get a little bit of romance in the first season of a shonen. So for just that, Dandadan is a top 10 romance anime of 2024. At number 9, I have Makeine, Too Many Losing Heroines. A romance that showed us that even the best of girls can be rejected. Yeah, tough break, ladies, I get it. I've been rejected too. Oh, only that one time though, okay? that one time. At number 8, I have A Sign of Affection. My favorite visuals for a romance anime this year. Yeah, there are better quality ones out there, but the style of this one won me over. And the show overall was just such a vibe. I really enjoyed it. At number 7, I have Spice and Wolf, Merchant Meets the Wise Wolf. At number 6, I have Date Alive 5. Yeah, you heard me right, did I stutter? Truly a harem anime for the ages. And with this likely being its final season, I honor it in my top 10. Thank you for everything, Kurumi. Alright guys, let's get serious. Top 5. At number 5, I have The Duke of Death and His Maid Season 3. This, everyone, is how you wrap up a series. As far as series finales go, this is as satisfying and conclusive as it gets in anime. At number 4, I have Pseudo Harem, my personal favorite romance manga, and the anime turned out great too. It's a simple, clean, and straightforward romance. No BS, no love triangles, no drama, just pure romantic bliss. What more could you ask for? At number 3, I have Grandpa and Grandma Turn Young Again, my biggest surprise of the year. I mean, how often do you see a romance with grandparents? What a great change in pace that delivered so many sweet and heartfelt moments. And as far as I'm concerned, it had the best ending to an anime I've seen this entire year. At number 2, I have Urusei Yatsura second season. Now let me be real with you. Is this anime actually the second best romance of the year? Honestly, no. There are more witty and more heartfelt romances out there. But you see, this is not just any romance anime. This is a remake, a tribute to an anime dating back all the way to 1981, before we saw the likes of Sailor Moon, Dragon Ball, and Studio Ghibli. This series was already leaving its mark as the OG romantic comedy of anime. And even after over 40 years, its impact can still be seen across anime to this day. And for that, I honor it with number 2. Thank you for your contributions to anime, Takahashi-sensei, the greatest woman in the history of comics. And finally, we're here at number 1. Now I know what I just said for number 2, but you can't live in the past forever. You have to look at the future, and the future is here. This is as pure as romances get. It shows that you don't need gimmicks or a complex story or high-stakes drama. Just deliver that one experience, the experience of falling in love. The excitement, the awkwardness, the elation that comes with it. I'm not sure I've seen an anime capture that essence as well as this anime. It's one of the best ever. Simple as that. Last year I had it at number 3, but this year, it's undeniable. The Dangers in My Heart Season 2 is my number 1 romance anime of 2024. Alright guys, top 10 done. Let's move over to the stats, shall we? As you already know, we got 46 romance anime in 2024. Out of those 46 romance anime, 37 of them were first season anime, while 9 of them were sequels. For comparison, for the previous year in 2023, we had a total of 44 romance anime, with 30 being first seasons and 14 being sequels. So you can see the numbers here are pretty similar. Now let's move on to setting. This shows where all the romance anime took place. Was it in high school? Do we follow adults? Or is it a fantasy anime? And to the surprise of no one, most of these anime are going to be set in high school or in a fantasy setting. Now there were some that were set both in high school and in fantasy, and in those cases I just put them in fantasy. And if we compare it to the previous year, yeah, it's pretty much the same similar trend here. If you combine the 2 years, out of the 90 total romance anime, 69 of them were set in high school and or fantasy, which is about 77%. Now let's move on to finding out how much actual romance we got from these anime this past year. Of the 46 romance anime, 16 of them had no romantic progression, which if you think about it, it's not horrible. That's about a third. But I also have this complicated category. And these are for like, you know, the arranged marriages, or maybe they kissed, but it just sort of happened, but they haven't committed to anything or really confessed yet. At the end of the day though, guys, out of the 46 romance anime, 22 of them had definitive romantic progression, which is about 48%. So about half the time we're at least getting a confession out of our couples. And if you look at the previous year in 2023, you actually see we did a little bit better with 25 out of 44, so around 57%. And lastly, we have the lewdness category. How lewd was the anime that we watched? If I found there to be no fan service, I put it in the no lewd category. If I saw like maybe only 1 or 2 couple of scenes, I put it in the light lewd. And then if there's just a standard amount of fan service, it goes into the lewd, and ecchi goes into ecchi. And then we have age gap. You know, if the girl is significantly younger than the guy, yeah. Now with all of that in mind, if you actually compare the 2 years, 2024 and 2023, it does seem like 2024 was a bit more lewd. Although I will admit this category is a bit more subjective, so keep that in mind. But at the end of the day, guys, I thought both years were great overall. 2023 and 2024 gave us some great romance anime, and I have no complaints. Now, this is where I would end the video, but I have one more thing for you guys. This year, I want it to be a little extra. I mean, this whole video is extra as is, okay? But just a little bit more. Have you ever asked yourself, what is the most tropey anime out there? And when I say tropey, you know what I mean, right? In the context of romance anime, if you've seen at least a few, you probably can rattle a few tropes right from the top of your head. You got the Christmas episode, the Valentine's episode, you know, they go to an onsen, they go camping, or they go shopping together. Or maybe our girl, she's a tsundere, or maybe she's the teasing type. Or for our guy, maybe he's the clumsy guy, or he's the one who freaks out all the time. You know, you can just, the list goes on. And so I thought, what if for all 46 of these romance anime, I count as many tropes as I can in each of them? Well, that's what I did. I tracked a whopping total of 94 tropes across all 46 romance anime. Meaning, with each of these 46 romance anime, I counted how many of those 94 tropes each of these romance anime had. And I did it all for the sake of answering 2 basic questions. What is the most and what is the least tropey romance anime? You see this? Valentine's, Christmas, school festival, and these are all the anime and the totals for each of the anime, how many of the tropes that they had. Look at this. I got the receipts all right here. Yeah, I'm crazy. Now that spreadsheet is an absolute mess, but I try to compact it into a more, you know, easily viewable form, and I put it in the description down below. So if you want to check out all the stats that I collected, please check it out. But with no further ado, based on all my findings, let me present to you the most tropey romance anime and the least tropey romance anime of 2024. So let's start with the most tropey romance anime of 2024. Like I said, I tracked 94 different tropes across all 46 romance anime, and the one that had the most tropes had a total of 40 of those 94 tropes, so about half of what I was tracking. And that romance anime was Vampire Dormitory. Congratulations, Vampire Dormitory, you piece of trash. I knew you belonged in F tier for a reason. I knew it, okay? For reference, the average amongst the 46 romance anime was 22.15, and the median being 21.5. So basically, Vampire Dormitory double to the average. Now, to be fair, you know, just because a romance anime has a lot of tropes doesn't necessarily make it bad, okay? Tropes aren't necessarily a bad thing when used well. But yeah, Vampire Dormitory was not the case there. In fact, not only did it have 40 tropes, it kept repeating all those tropes over and over again, which, by the way, I didn't track if they kept repeating the tropes, so that obviously helps out those more tropey anime. But I did notice that the ones that keep repeating tropes also tend to use the most tropes overall. So anyway, congratulations, Vampire Dormitory. You are the most tropey romance anime of 2024. Now let's move on to the least tropey romance anime of 2024. Again, I tracked 94 different tropes across all 46 romance anime. And the least tropey romance anime only had 8 of the 94 tropes I was tracking. Again, the average was around 22 and the median's around 21.5. So that is a staggeringly low number. And that romance anime was Days with My Stepsister. It's over, guys. The least tropey romance anime of the year is a step-sibling romance. I spent months collecting this data. Months! Okay? And this is what I get. I double-check, triple-check the numbers, okay? I'm not trolling. Those of you guys who've watched this anime, I think we can agree, at least it is, in fact, very grounded. It is not tropey at all. So, we can at least say that. In this video, I put this anime in C tier. But now that it has earned this prestigious honor of being the least tropey romance anime of 2024, I will be bumping it up to B tier. That is all I have to say. Again, guys, if you want to look at all the data I've collected, I have the link in the description down below, so be sure to check that out. It has all the romance anime and all the tropes I tracked for each of them. Just keep in mind, you know, I'm just one person. I probably made some mistakes trying to track all the tropes. I mean, there's 94 of them. Obviously, I'm going to make some mistakes, but I do think I did my best. Let's say 80% accurate. Actually, when I started this journey, I was tracking over 100 tropes, but I ended up dropping some of them as the year was going on, because some of these tropes were really hard to track, and some I just kept forgetting to remember to track them, and yeah, it whittled down to 94, which is still a lot, I think. But if you notice some obvious tropes missing from that list, it's probably because I gave up on it. Anyways, guys, that's it. You have made it to the end of the video. If you watched the entirety of this video, you are half as crazy as me. Thank you to all my subscribers. I have 500 subscribers somehow with only 6 videos published. And I somehow also have over 46,000 views, 2.5 thousand likes. I don't know how that happened, but thank you so much. I really appreciate all the support and all my viewers out there. I will keep going at it. I may not produce the most videos, but at least know that I put the best effort into each one of them. It may not always be the best, but hey, it's at least honest work. So with all that said, guys, thank you once again for watching this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and I'll see you guys in the next video.